At 6:15 a.m. on September 23, 1945, inside the makeshift detention facility at Yokohama Port, 28-year-old Keiko Yamamoto stood frozen at the entrance to the shower room. She could hear the water running. She could see the steam rising through the doorway. What she couldn't see, but knew was there, were the two American guards standing just inside, clipboards in hand, watching. This was the fourth morning they had done this. The fourth morning she would have to remove every piece of clothing. The fourth morning she would have to stand naked while male soldiers she'd been taught to fear watched her bathe. But this morning was different. This morning, they had added a new requirement. "You will answer questions while you shower," the translator had said. "You will confess your crimes. If you refuse to speak, the water stops. If you lie, everyone in your barracks loses meals for 2 days." Keiko's hands trembled as she reached for the buttons of her worn prison uniform. What she didn't know was that her answer to one specific question, asked while she stood vulnerable and exposed under that cold water, would determine whether she ever saw her family again. This is the story of how Japanese women prisoners of war discovered that the Americans had found a new kind of interrogation, one that didn't require violence, one that weaponized shame itself. Keiko Yamamoto wasn't supposed to be here. 18 months earlier, she had been a school teacher in Hiroshima, teaching English to middle school students. She taught Shakespeare and American poetry. She had never fired a gun. She had never worn a uniform. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., she walked the same route to Hijiyama Girls' School, stopping at the same corner shop to buy rice crackers for her lunch. The owner's daughter was one of her students. Her mother always said she was too gentle for wartime. "You cry when you see injured birds," her mother would tease. "How will you survive this war?" But on March 8, 1945, everything changed when the government issued Directive 127. All English-speaking civilians between ages 18 and 45 were to report for special communication duties. Keiko reported to the conscription office the next morning. She thought she would be translating documents, safe work, indoor work. Instead, they sent her to Okinawa. The military needed translators for captured American documents. They needed women who could read English quickly, accurately, under pressure. Keiko and 47 other teachers, secretaries, and university students were packed into a cargo transport and shipped to the island 3 weeks before the American invasion began. "You are serving the Emperor," the commanding officer told them. "Your work will save Japanese lives." Keiko translated prisoner interrogation reports. She transcribed radio intercepts. She decoded American supply manifests. She never touched a weapon. She never hurt anyone. But when the island fell on June 22, 1945, the Americans didn't care about those distinctions. You were found in a military facility. You were processing intelligence documents. You were wearing a government-issued uniform. That made you a combatant. That made you a prisoner of war. Keiko was captured along with 11 other women translators when American forces overran their communications bunker. The soldiers who found them were young, 19, maybe 20 years old. They looked terrified. Their hands shook as they pointed rifles at women who had their hands raised. "Don't shoot," Keiko had shouted in English. "We surrender. We are unarmed." The soldiers looked at each other, confused. One of them lowered his rifle slightly. "You speak English?" he asked. "Yes," Keiko said. "We are translators. Only translators." The soldier's expression hardened. "Translators for the Jap military. That makes you spies." Keiko's stomach dropped. She understood, in that moment, exactly how the Americans would see them. The first detention facility was on Okinawa itself, a converted warehouse near the port. 200 Japanese women prisoners crammed into a space designed for cargo. No beds, no privacy, 2 buckets for toilets, 1 meal per day. But they were alive. Keiko tried to remember that, tried to focus on that simple fact. The Americans had dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 3 weeks after her capture. She didn't know if her mother had survived. She didn't know if her city still existed. The guards wouldn't tell them anything. "War's over," one guard said. "Your emperor quit. That's all you need to know." In early September, they were transferred. 73 women loaded onto a transport ship, destination unknown. "Where are they taking us?" whispered Fumiko, a 22-year-old translator who had worked alongside Keiko. "I don't know," Keiko answered. "Maybe a proper POW camp, maybe home." She was wrong on both counts. The facility at Yokohama port was worse. It had been a customs inspection warehouse before the war. Now it held approximately 300 Japanese women, military nurses, communications workers, translators, clerks. Anyone the Americans deemed intelligence assets. The building was concrete and steel, no windows in the detention areas, fluorescent lights that buzzed constantly and never turned off completely. The air always smelled like mildew and disinfectant. They slept on thin mats on the floor, 30 women per room. Each room measured roughly 20 feet by 30 feet. You couldn't stretch out without touching someone. The guards were U.S. Army, mostly young men from the occupation forces. Some looked at the prisoners with curiosity, some with contempt, some with something else that made Keiko's skin crawl. The camp commander was Lieutenant Colonel Harrison. Keiko never saw him. She only heard his voice over the loudspeaker system, announcing new rules, new restrictions, new security procedures. The first shower incident happened on September 20th. Before that day, the women bathed in shifts, 15 at a time, in a large communal shower room with multiple shower heads. They had 10 minutes. Cold water only, but they had privacy. The guards stayed outside. On September 20th, that changed. "New security protocol," the translator announced during morning roll call. "All bathing will now be supervised. Guards will be present to ensure no contraband is concealed, no escape planning occurs, and no self-harm attempts are made." The women stood in stunned silence. "Supervised?" someone finally asked. "You mean they will watch us?" "2 guards will be present during all shower periods," the translator confirmed. "This is non-negotiable. This is for your safety and ours." Fumiko grabbed Keiko's arm. "They can't do this. This violates..." "It violates nothing," the translator cut her off. "You are prisoners of war. You have no rights to privacy. You will comply or you will not bathe at all." That first morning, half the women refused. They stood outside the shower room, arms crossed, silent. The guards turned off the water. "No one bathes until everyone bathes," the translator announced. By the 3rd day, the smell in the barracks was unbearable. The guards started threatening reduced food rations. Other prisoners began begging the resistors to comply. "Please," an older woman pleaded with Keiko. "I can't stand this anymore. Just do it. Close your eyes. Pretend they're not there." On the 4th day, Keiko and the others gave in. Your hands shake as you unbutton your prison uniform. The fabric is rough, worn thin from washing. It smells like sweat and fear. The shower room is cold. Concrete floor, concrete walls, 8 shower heads mounted in a row. No curtains, no dividers. Nothing between you and the 2 American soldiers standing near the door. They're young, maybe 20 years old. One has red hair and freckles. The other has dark hair and won't make eye contact. They both hold clipboards. They both look uncomfortable. That doesn't make it better. You fold your uniform carefully, placing it on the bench. Your hands won't stop shaking. 15 other women are with you. Everyone is looking at the floor. No one speaks. You remove your undergarments. You are naked now, completely exposed. The guards are 12 feet away. The red-haired guard shifts his weight. He's looking at his clipboard. He's trying not to look at you, but he is looking. You know he is. You walk to the shower head at the end. Turn the knob. The water is ice cold. It hits your skin like needles. You try to wash quickly, efficiently. Get this over with. Behind you, you hear one of the women crying. Soft, choked sobs she's trying to muffle. The guards don't react. 10 minutes. That's all you have. You wash your hair. You wash your body. You keep your eyes closed as much as possible. When the whistle blows, you turn off the water. You walk back to your clothes, dripping wet. There are no towels. You dry yourself with your hands as best you can, then dress in your damp uniform. The guards make check marks on their clipboards. You file out of the shower room with the others. No one speaks for the rest of the day. For 3 days, this was the routine. Humiliating, degrading, but bearable, barely. Then came September 23rd. The morning Keiko learned that the showers weren't just about watching anymore. If you want to understand how Keiko and the other Japanese women prisoners survived what happened in the next 72 hours, and why this specific interrogation technique was buried in classified military files for 60 years, please hit that like button and do tell which city and time you are watching from. It tells YouTube to show this forgotten history to more people who need to hear it. And subscribe, because we're uncovering stories like this every week. Stories that textbooks erased. Stories that challenge simple narratives about the good war. Stories about how war destroys everyone it touches. Now, back to September 23rd, 1945. The morning the showers became interrogation rooms. The announcement came during the 6 a.m. roll call. Effective immediately, the translator said. Shower time will include verbal questioning. You will answer truthfully and completely. Failure to answer results in loss of shower privileges for your entire barracks. False answers result in loss of meals. Keiko felt her stomach tighten. What kind of questions? Fumiko whispered beside her. The translator heard. Questions about your military service, your duties, names of your superiors, locations of facilities, intelligence you processed, everything. But we've already been interrogated, Keiko said. Multiple times. We've told you everything. The translator's expression didn't change. Then the questions should be easy to answer. Your group is called at 6:15 a.m. 15 women. Same as always. But today, there are 3 guards in the shower room instead of 2. The third man is older, maybe 35. He holds a folder thick with papers. He doesn't look uncomfortable like the younger guards. He looks clinical, professional. This is his job. Remove your clothing, he says through the translator. Begin showering. I will ask questions. You will answer while you wash. Do not stop washing. Do not stop answering. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely unbutton your uniform. You're trying to understand the strategy here. They want you vulnerable, exposed, unable to hide behind any defense. They want you to associate this humiliation with compliance. It's working. You step under the freezing water, turn it on. The cold is shocking, but you're almost grateful for it. It gives you something else to feel besides the shame. Name, the interrogator says. Yamamoto Keiko. Age, 28. Military unit. Communications section, Okinawa Defense Force. Your supervisor's name. You hesitate. You've answered this before, multiple times, but something about answering it here Now, while you're naked and freezing, makes it feel different, makes it feel like betrayal. Your supervisor's name, he repeats, Captain Tanaka Hiroshi. Where is Captain Tanaka now? I don't know. He was killed during the American bombardment, May 12th. You're certain he's dead? I saw his body. The interrogator makes a note, moves to the next woman. Name. You try to focus on washing. Try to pretend this is normal. Try to pretend you're anywhere else. But you can hear every question, every answer, every woman's voice shaking. How many documents did you translate per day? What were the code names for the supply routes? Who had access to the radio room? Where were the backup communication facilities? Some questions you know the answers to. Some you don't. Some you're not sure if you should answer, even though you've technically answered them before. The water is still running. You've been in here for 12 minutes now, longer than usual. Your fingers are going numb. The interrogator reaches you again. Yamamoto Keiko, you translated American prisoner interrogation reports, correct? Yes. How many prisoners did you translate reports for? I don't know the exact number, maybe 40, 50? What information did these reports contain? Troop movements, supply information, strategic plans. Did you ever meet any of these American prisoners? The question surprises you. No, never. I only saw the typed reports. But you knew this information was being used to kill American soldiers. Your throat tightens. I was following orders. I was serving my country. Just following orders. The interrogator's voice is flat. Where have we heard that before? You don't answer. There's no good answer. He moves on. The whistle blows. Shower time is over. You dress quickly, your wet skin making the rough uniform stick to you. As you file out, you hear the interrogator say to one of the guards, "Same time tomorrow, we'll go deeper." Scene 2. The aftermath. Afternoon, day 1. Back in the barracks, no one speaks for almost an hour. You sit on your thin mat, staring at the concrete wall. Your skin still feels exposed, even though you're fully clothed now. You can't stop shaking. Fumiko finally breaks the silence. They're trying to break us. They've already broken us, another woman says. Her name is Sachiko. She's 25. She was a nurse. What more do they want? Confessions, you say quietly. They want us to confess that we were war criminals, that we knowingly helped kill American soldiers. They want us to say we're guilty. But we are guilty, Sachiko whispers. Aren't we? We did work for the military. We did process intelligence that was used in combat. We were conscripted, Fumiko snaps. We had no choice. That's not the same as being war criminals. Try telling them that. You close your eyes. You're so tired. You haven't slept properly in 4 months. The lights never fully turn off. The concrete floor hurts your back. The fear never goes away. And now, every morning, you have to stand naked and answer questions while strangers watch. How much more can you endure? Her name was Yuki. She was 19 years old. She had been a telegraph operator. She managed to get out of the barracks somehow. No one knows how. She made it to the perimeter fence. She was trying to climb over when the guards spotted her. They didn't shoot her. They brought her back. The next morning, during roll call, they made everyone watch as they shaved her head, completely bald. Then they made her stand in the center of the courtyard for 6 hours without water. This is what happens when you try to escape, the translator announced. This is what happens when you don't cooperate. Yuki collapsed after 4 hours. They left her there for the remaining 2. That afternoon, the shower interrogations continued. Day 2. Same routine, same cold water, same guards. But the questions are different now. More specific, more personal. Yamamoto Keiko, you lived in Hiroshima before the war, correct? Your heart stops. Yes. Your mother still lived there when the bomb dropped. It's not a question. It's a statement. I don't know if she survived, you whisper. Would you like to know? You look up at him, water streaming down your face. You know? We have records, survivor registrations. We know who lived and who died. Your hands are gripping the shower knob so tightly your knuckles are white. Is she alive? Answer my questions completely and honestly, and I'll tell you. You feel something break inside you. This is it. This is how they'll get everything they want. They're holding your mother hostage. Not physically, but informationally. What do you want to know? You ask. The American prisoners whose interrogations you translated. Did you ever add your own observations to the reports? No, I only translated what was written. Never offered suggestions, never provided context. Never. You're certain? Yes. He makes a note. Doesn't tell you about your mother, moves to the next woman. You stand there, water running over you, and you realize he's never going to tell you. Whether she's alive or dead, he'll keep using this. Keep dangling it. Keep making you hope. This is the cruelty. Not the watching. Not even the questions. The hope. The false hope that cooperation will bring relief. By the third day, some women are starting to break. Sachiko answers questions that she shouldn't answer. Details about facility layouts. Names of people who might still be alive and hiding. Why did you tell them that? Fumiko hisses at her afterward. Because I can't do this anymore, Sachiko says. I can't stand there naked every morning and be interrogated like a criminal. I just want it to stop. It won't stop, don't you see? The more you give them, the more they'll want. But Sachiko isn't. Listening. She's curled up on her mat, facing the wall. That night, you hear her crying. Quiet, hopeless sobs that go on for hours. Your turn morning of day 4. Your group again. The interrogator has a new approach today. Yamamoto Keiko, I'm going to read you a statement. You will tell me if it's true or false. You nod, water already running. Statement 1. You willingly joined the Japanese Military Communications Unit. False. I was conscripted. Statement 2. You knew the intelligence you translated would be used to plan attacks on American forces. You hesitate. True, but I had no choice. True or false? True. Statement 3. You are responsible for American deaths. Your voice breaks. I don't... True or false, Yamamoto? The water is ice cold. Your entire body is shaking. You can feel the other women watching you. You can feel the weight of this question. If you say true, you're confessing to war crimes. If you say false, you're lying, and everyone loses meals. I translated documents, you finally say. I didn't kill anyone. That's not an answer to my question. Then I don't know how to answer it. The interrogator steps closer. He's still outside the shower area, but closer. Let me make this simple. Your work contributed to American casualties. True or false? You close your eyes. True. Louder. True. Again. True. You're crying now, water and tears mixing on your face. True, true, true. Is that what you want to hear? I'm guilty. We're all guilty. We did what our government told us to do, and now you want us to hate ourselves for it. The shower room is silent. The interrogator makes a note. Good. That's progress. He moves to the next woman. You stand there, still crying, and you realize this is what they wanted all along. Not information. They already have the information. They want confession. They want guilt. They want you to internalize that you're a criminal. They want to destroy not just your body, but your sense of self. You stop eating, not as protest. You're just too nauseous to keep food down. Every morning, the same routine. Strip, shower, answer questions, get dressed, go back to barracks. Every morning, you feel a little more hollow. Fumiko tries to talk to you. Keiko, you have to eat something. I'm not hungry. You're going to get sick. I'm already sick. She doesn't argue. What can she say? She's barely holding on herself. That night, another woman tries to kill herself. Her name was Misaki. She was 31. She had 3 children she hadn't seen in 8 months. She tried to hang herself with torn strips of her uniform. Another prisoner found her in time, cut her down, screamed for the guards. They took Misaki to the medical facility. You don't know if she survived. The next morning, during roll call, the camp commander's voice came over the loudspeaker. Prisoner suicide attempts will result in collective punishment. If any prisoner attempts self-harm, her entire barracks will lose meal privileges for 1 week. You are responsible for each other. Act accordingly. Now you can't even choose death without hurting everyone else. Something shifts on day 7. You're standing in the shower, answering the same questions you've answered 6 times before, and you realize they have nothing left to take. They've taken your dignity, your privacy, your sense of self, your hope. What else is there? When the interrogator asks you the same question about American casualties, you give a different answer. I translated documents. I did my duty to my country, just as you're doing yours. If that makes me a war criminal, then every soldier who ever followed orders is a war criminal, including you. The interrogator's expression doesn't change. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have left. He stares at you for a long moment, then moves to the next woman. You don't know if this is courage or just exhaustion. You don't know if you'll be punished for this. You don't care anymore. One of the younger guards, the one with dark hair who never makes eye contact, approaches you during the exercise period. He glances around to make sure no one is watching, then quickly says in broken Japanese, "I'm sorry." You stare at him. What? This, the showers, the questions. It's wrong. I told my CO it's wrong. He said it's necessary. The guard looks miserable. I'm sorry. He walks away before you can respond. You stand there, stunned. It's the first time any American has acknowledged that what they're doing is cruel. It doesn't change anything. The interrogations will continue. The humiliation will continue. But somehow, that one word, sorry, makes you feel human again. Just for a moment. On the 10th day of shower interrogations, something breaks in the system. A Red Cross inspector arrives unannounced. You don't see him. You only hear about it later. But apparently, he demanded to tour the facilities. He demanded to see the detention conditions. He demanded to speak with prisoners. The shower interrogations stop that day, abruptly, without explanation. You're told to bathe normally. No guards inside, no questions. You don't trust it. You keep expecting them to come back in, but they don't. 10 minutes, just water, just washing. It feels like a miracle. Effective immediately, shower supervision protocols are under review. Until further notice, guards will remain outside the shower facility. Verbal interrogations during bathing are suspended pending review by the International Red Cross. The barracks erupts in whispers. What does this mean? Someone asks. It means someone finally noticed, Fumiko says. It means maybe they went too far. You want to feel relief. You want to feel vindicated. Instead, you feel numb. 10 days. 10 days of that torture. and it took an outside inspector showing up by chance for it to stop. How many other camps are doing the same thing? How many other women are still being subjected to this? You'll never know. The Red Cross inspector's name was Henrik Paulsson, a Swedish national working with the International Committee of the Red Cross. He had been conducting routine inspections of POW facilities across occupied Japan. Yokohama wasn't supposed to be on his list. He only came because a local Japanese doctor had managed to get a message to the Red Cross office in Tokyo, reporting concerning treatment of female prisoners. That doctor probably saved dozens of women from weeks more of the shower interrogations. Paulsson interviewed 23 women prisoners privately. Keiko was one of them. "Tell me about the shower procedures," he said through a translator. Keiko told him everything: the watching, the questions, the threats, the psychological pressure. Paulsson's face remained neutral, but his pen moved quickly across his notepad. "How long has this been happening?" 10 days. But they were watching us for 3 days before the interrogations started. "Did they ever touch you? Physically harm you?" "No. They didn't have to. The humiliation was the weapon." Paulsson nodded. "I understand. Thank you for your honesty." 3 days later, Lieutenant Colonel Harrison was relieved of command. The official reason given was administrative reassignment. The real reason was buried in a classified Red Cross report that wouldn't be declassified until 2008. The report stated, "The practice of conducting interrogations during mandatory bathing of female POWs constitutes a violation of the Geneva Convention's provisions regarding humane treatment and dignity of prisoners. While no physical abuse occurred, the psychological coercion and deliberate humiliation represent cruel treatment inconsistent with international law and American military values." The practice was immediately discontinued at Yokohama. Orders were sent to other facilities to ensure similar practices were not occurring. But the damage was done. 2 weeks after the interrogations stopped, Keiko learned the truth about her mother. A new Red Cross worker was processing family location requests. Keiko submitted her mother's name, expecting nothing. 3 days later, she got an answer. Her mother had survived the atomic bombing. She was living in a refugee camp outside Hiroshima. She was alive. Keiko sat on her mat and cried for an hour straight. The interrogator had known. He had known the whole time. He could have told her on day 2, could have given her that relief, that hope. Instead, he had used it as leverage, used her mother as a bargaining chip. Even now, even after the interrogations stopped, the cruelty lingered. In November 1945, the American military began processing releases for non-combatant Japanese prisoners. Women who could prove they had been conscripted, who had no direct combat role, who posed no security threat. Keiko qualified. She could go home. But there was a condition. She had to sign a document, a statement acknowledging that she had been treated in accordance with international law during her detention, that she had no complaints about her treatment, that she would not speak publicly about her experiences. If she refused to sign, her release would be delayed indefinitely. Keiko stared at the document for a long time. Fumiko, who was being released the same day, whispered, "Just sign it. It doesn't matter. We know the truth." "But no one else will," Keiko said. "Does it matter? We survived. That's what matters." Keiko thought about her mother, thought about going home, thought about the years of silence ahead. She signed the document. She hated herself for it, but she signed. On November 28, 1945, Keiko Yamamoto was released from American custody. She was given 500 yen, a set of civilian clothes, and a train ticket to Hiroshima, She was 28 years old. She weighed 42 kilograms, 15 kilograms less than when she was captured. Her hair had started to fall out from stress and malnutrition. She had nightmares every night, but she was free. The train ride took 14 hours. Keiko spent most of it staring out the window, watching the destroyed landscape pass by. Burned cities, flattened buildings, refugees walking along the roads. Japan had lost the war. Japan had been destroyed, and Keiko had been destroyed along with it. Her mother was waiting at the refugee camp when Keiko arrived. They saw each other across the crowded registration area. For a moment, neither moved. Then her mother ran. Keiko ran. They collided in an embrace that felt like it would break bones. "I thought you were dead," her mother sobbed. "I thought I'd lost you." "I'm here," Keiko whispered. "I'm here." They held each other for a long time. Other refugees watched, some crying themselves. Later, sitting in the small tent that served as her mother's home, Keiko tried to explain what had happened, where she had been, what she had experienced, but the words wouldn't come. How do you explain the shower interrogations? How do you describe that particular kind of humiliation? How do you tell your mother that you were forced to stand naked in front of strangers and confess to crimes you're not sure you committed? "It was difficult," Keiko finally said. "But I survived." Her mother held her hand. "That's all that matters." But Keiko knew it wasn't. Surviving wasn't the same as being whole. Keiko never spoke publicly about the shower interrogations, not for 60 years. She wasn't alone. Of the 73 women who were held at Yokohama during that period, only 3 ever spoke about what happened. The rest took the story to their graves. Why? Fear, partly. The document they signed made them worry about legal consequences. Shame, mostly. In post-war Japan, any hint of sexual impropriety, even as a victim, could ruin a woman's reputation, her marriage prospects, her entire life. Better to stay silent. Better to pretend it never happened. Keiko tried to rebuild her life. She went back to teaching, though not English. She couldn't bear to speak the language anymore. She taught mathematics instead. She never married. When people asked why, she said she was too busy with her career. The real reason was simpler. She couldn't imagine being intimate with anyone. The thought of being naked in front of another person triggered panic attacks. The thought of being vulnerable triggered flashbacks. The shower interrogations had lasted only 10 days, but they had broken something in her that never fully healed. For 30 years, Keiko had the same nightmare at least twice a week. She's standing in the shower room. The water is running. The guards are watching. But when she looks down, she realizes she's not in her body anymore. She's floating above, watching herself answer questions, watching herself cry. And she can't stop it. She can't wake up. She can't escape. She would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, her heart racing. Sometimes she would go days without showering because the thought of water on her skin brought back the memories. Her mother noticed but never asked. In Japan, you don't talk about trauma, you endure it. Silently. Fumiko, Keiko's friend from the camp, did get married. She had 2 children. She seemed happy. But in 1967, she committed suicide. She was 44 years old. Her husband told people it was because of health problems. Her daughter, years later, found her mother's diary. The last entry said, "I can't stop feeling dirty. I've tried for 22 years. I can't stop feeling like everyone is watching me." Sachiko, the nurse who broke during interrogations, became a recluse. She lived alone in a small apartment in Osaka. She died in 1989, alone. Her body wasn't found for 3 weeks. Yuki, The girl who tried to escape and was punished survived the war but struggled with severe PTSD. She spent years in and out of psychiatric facilities. She died in 2003. These were the invisible casualties of war. Women who survived physically but were destroyed psychologically. Women whose suffering was never officially acknowledged. Women who were told to be grateful they survived at all. In 2008, the Red Cross report about Yokohama was finally declassified as part of a broader release of World War II documents. A Japanese historian named Dr. Nakamura Hiroshi discovered it while researching post-war occupation policies. He was shocked. "I had studied this period for 20 years, he later said. I had never heard of this practice. No one had. He began tracking down survivors. Most had died, but he found 7 women who were still alive and willing to talk. Keiko was one of them. She was 91 years old. She had retired from teaching 25 years earlier. She lived in a small apartment in Kyoto with her cat. When Dr. Nakamura contacted her, she was hesitant at first. "Why bring this up now?" she asked. "It was so long ago. Everyone involved is probably dead." "Because it happened," Dr. Nakamura said. "Because it was wrong. Because other people should know." Keiko thought about it for 2 weeks. Then she agreed to be interviewed. The interview took place in Keiko's apartment. Dr. Nakamura brought a video camera and a translator, though Keiko's English had come back over the years. "Tell me about the shower interrogations," he said. Keiko took a deep breath. She was 91 years old. She had lived with this secret for 63 years, and she finally told the truth. She spoke for 3 hours. She described everything: the cold water, the guards watching, the questions, the psychological pressure, the way it felt to be stripped of all dignity while being told to confess to crimes. She cried several times. So did Dr. Nakamura. When she finished, he asked her one final question. "Why do you think they did it?" Keiko was quiet for a long moment. "I think they wanted to break us, not just get information. They already had that. They wanted to make us feel like we deserved what happened to Japan. The bombs, the occupation, everything. They wanted us to internalize guilt." "Did it work?" "Yes," Keiko whispered. "For many of us, it worked. We spent the rest of our lives feeling guilty, feeling dirty, feeling like we deserved to suffer." She paused. "But I don't feel that way anymore. I'm 91 years old. I don't have much time left. And I want to say, for the record, we were not criminals. We were conscripts. We were women who did what we were ordered to do in a war we didn't start. What happened to us was wrong. It was cruel, and it should never have happened." Dr. Nakamura's research was published in 2010 in a Japanese historical journal. It caused a minor controversy. Some people were outraged. This is what the Americans did? This is the humane occupation we were told about. Others were dismissive. It was war. Worse things happened. Why complain about shower interrogations when millions died? A few American veterans groups denied it happened. "This is Japanese propaganda. Our soldiers would never do this." But the Red Cross report was real. The documents were real. The survivors' testimonies were real. The U.S. government never officially apologized. They issued a statement saying that certain practices during the immediate post-war period did not meet modern standards of prisoner treatment, but must be understood in the context of the time. It wasn't an apology. It was an excuse. Keiko wasn't surprised. "I didn't expect an apology," she said. "I just wanted people to know it happened. I wanted the other women who suffered to know they weren't alone. I wanted their pain to be acknowledged." Keiko lived for 4 more years after giving that interview. She died in 2012 at age 95. In her final years, she seemed lighter somehow, as if telling the truth had lifted a weight she'd been carrying for decades. She started showering normally again. The nightmares decreased. She could talk about the war without panic attacks. "I wish I'd spoken up sooner," she told a friend near the end. "I wish I hadn't stayed silent for so long. But I was afraid. We were all afraid." Her friend asked what she was afraid of. "Being believed," Keiko said. "Being disbelieved, being blamed, being forgotten. All of it." She paused. "But mostly I was afraid that if I talked about it, I would have to relive it, and I'd spent 60 years trying to forget." "Do you regret speaking up?" "No," Keiko said. "I should have done it decades ago." The shower interrogations at Yokohama weren't an isolated incident. According to declassified documents and survivor testimonies, similar practices occurred at least 12 other detention facilities across occupied Japan in 1945 to 1946. The exact number of women affected is unknown, but historians estimate between 800 and 1,200 Japanese women prisoners experienced some form of forced nudity interrogation. The practice was never official policy. It was never written in any manual. It emerged organically from the combination of military necessity, the need to process thousands of prisoners quickly, cultural attitudes, the dehumanization of the enemy, and simple cruelty, the power dynamic of victor over vanquished. Most importantly, it was enabled by silence. The prisoners couldn't speak up. The guards were ordered not to talk about it. The officers who approved it buried the evidence. There are several reasons why the shower interrogation stories remained hidden for so long. First, the women who experienced it were ashamed. In 1940s Japan, female modesty was paramount. The idea of being naked in front of men, especially enemy men, carried enormous stigma. Speaking about it would have brought dishonor to themselves and their families. Second, the American military had no incentive to publicize it. The U.S. was positioning itself as a benevolent occupier, bringing democracy and freedom to Japan. Stories of psychological torture of female prisoners didn't fit that narrative. Third, the Cold War shifted attention. By the late 1940s, Japan was becoming an American ally against the Soviet Union. Dredging up wartime treatment of Japanese prisoners was diplomatically inconvenient. Fourth, the prisoners themselves had signed non-disclosure agreements. While these agreements probably wouldn't have held up legally, they created a chilling effect. Women worried about legal consequences if they spoke up. Finally, society wasn't ready to hear these stories. The concept of psychological abuse wasn't well understood in the 1940s and 50s. People focused on physical torture, physical violence. The idea that humiliation alone could be traumatic wasn't widely accepted. The 1929 Geneva Convention, which governed treatment of prisoners of war, had specific provisions about physical violence, adequate food, medical care, and living conditions. It said nothing about psychological coercion, nothing about humiliation, nothing about forced nudity. This gap allowed practices like the shower interrogations to exist in a legal gray area. Technically, no laws were being broken. No one was being beaten. No one was being starved. But enormous harm was being done. It wasn't until the 1949 revision of the Geneva Convention, directly influenced by World War II abuses, that psychological torture and humiliation were explicitly prohibited. By then, it was too late for Keiko and the others. Keiko Yamamoto's story is one of more than 1,000 similar accounts that have been documented since the declassification of Allied occupation records in 2008. Historians estimate that thousands more women experienced similar treatment, but never spoke about it, taking their stories to the grave. Today, Keiko is gone. She died in 2012 at age 95. She spent 63 years carrying the weight of those 10 days in September 1945. She spent 63 years feeling ashamed of something that was done to her, not by her. In her final interview, she said something that stays with me. "I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I want them to understand that war destroys everyone, even the survivors, especially the survivors." These women, Japanese, German, Italian, and yes, even some Allied women held by Axis forces, they all suffered in ways their own governments didn't want to acknowledge. Their stories challenge the simple narratives we tell about World War II. They complicate the story of the good war. They force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our side, the winning side, also committed acts of cruelty. War doesn't have good guys and bad guys. War has people, and people, under the right circumstances, are capable of terrible things. If this story moved you, I need you to do something. First, hit that subscribe button. We're rescuing forgotten stories like Keiko's every single week. Stories that textbooks erased. Stories that challenge comfortable narratives. Stories that deserve to be heard, even when, especially when, they're difficult to hear. Second, like this video. I know that sounds trivial, but it's not. Every like tells YouTube's algorithm that this content matters, that difficult history matters, that women's experiences in war matter, that truth matters even when it's uncomfortable. The more engagement this video gets, the more people YouTube will show it to, the more people who learn Keiko's story. Third, and most importantly, comment below. Tell me, where are you watching from? Did you know about the shower interrogations before this video? Has anyone in your family shared wartime experiences that were kept secret for decades? Let's create a space where these stories are honored, where survivors' pain is acknowledged, where the truth isn't buried anymore. And if you know someone who experienced something similar, if you have a grandmother, a great aunt, a family friend who was detained during World War II and never talked about it, please, if they're willing, help them tell their story. Record it, write it down, preserve it. Because every year, we lose more survivors. Every year, more stories disappear forever. Thank you for bearing witness to Keiko Yamamoto's story. Thank you for sitting through 45 minutes of difficult history. Thank you for not looking away. Thank you for making sure she's not forgotten. Here's 80 years later, we're still telling her story. That matters.